Okay, hi everyone. My name is Natalie Johnson. I am a current junior at UNC. I'm double majoring in economics and political science, and then I also have a minor in public policy. And a fun fact about me and this internship is that I'm currently studying abroad in Edinburgh, Scotland. So I'm here to talk about my internship with CSC and EcoStudio. So I am the climate finance investment intern for CSC. And CSC is the Center for Sustainable Enterprise, which is through UNC's Keenan Flagler Business School. And the purpose around CSC is driving social and environmental sustainability through innovative business solutions. And I just want to give a little shout out to my mentor, Jeffrey Middlestat, who is the executive director of CSC. So with my deliverables, my main aspects of the internship was creating story maps. So coming into this internship, I had never created a story map, and I honestly had never even really heard of story maps. I had no idea what they were. But essentially, it's a creative way of designing a story in your website. So it makes it more interactive with your reader, whoever's looking at your website. And it's just a better way, in my opinion, to convey information and draw in your reader. And so I want to show you guys a couple of my story maps to give you a good example. And so I have screenshots here, but I'm actually going to move to a couple of them just to highlight some aspects of story maps and give you an idea of what they are. And so this is a story map I made for the India Impact Challenge, which was powered by Quantum Advisors, and it was held in the spring of 2021. So I made a story map about a team, and they're from India, and they came up with a business solution around sustainability and driving investments in India around climate change. So just to show you an idea of what a story map is, you can kind of click through the story at the top, or you can simply scroll down through stories and it will show you, this is how you can interact. You can just click through it. This gives you an idea of who I was writing about, where they're from. In this map, I'll just highlight their climate change stories so I can give you guys an idea of what that looks like. So I was able to take where each individual on this team was from and highlight their story and why they got involved with the India Impact Challenge, specifically how they saw climate change impacting their own community. And so as you can see, the reader is able to zoom in and look on the map where the person is from. And then as their story goes along, it takes you on the map somewhere else. So for example, this was Single. He told me about how he grew up in New Delhi. So it takes you to India. And the first time he left India was when he was 18 years old, and he went to Europe, and he really noticed the difference in air quality. So with the story map, it takes you to Europe. So it kind of goes and shows the reader, okay, like I'm moving places here. So it's a good way to also like geographically pinpoint locations. So that is that story map. And then I also want to show you another key aspect with my other one. So here's something else I really enjoy about story maps is that you can embed graphs into them. And so when a reader is looking at, what you're writing about, your story, they can interact with these graphs. So, this is showing GDP growth in South Korea. So you can click anywhere on this graph and see all the different data points. Additionally, there's another one in here that I want to show. And this one, you can just simply press play, and it's going to show you the CO2 emissions over time in South Korea from 1905 to 2020. And so I think that it's really interesting that, a reader they're not just seeing a graph, sometimes you see graphs and you just want to skip over them. You might not even understand them, but here the reader is able to interact with the graph and even change the different, if it's, it being a table versus a chart. So that was a really cool aspect, I think, with story maps and how you can embed them into your story and they're interactive. So the purpose of story maps was simply to tie together climate mitigation and adaptation stories, highlighting developing markets with investment and climate impacts. Um, yeah, so that was story maps. Um, I really felt that it was helpful for me. I've learned new skills with creating story maps. I had never used ArcGIS in my life and coming into this internship, and so those maps were made completely with ArcGIS. And then in addition to that, a lot of the images I created on Canva, which I had also never done before. So I was able to take away some new skills from that. And I also just briefly want to talk about my experience at COP26. I was, given the opportunity to attend COP26, and this was especially easy for me, thankfully, being in Edinburgh, Scotland right now, given that the conference was in Glasgow. Um, but essentially, I was given access to the blue zones. And so different countries and organizations held what were called pavilions, and they just invited speakers to come and talk. And so I had the opportunity just to attend different talks. And so um, just for example, I attend a talk from the World Health Organization, and they had invited a company called ProVeg to speak. And this talk was specifically about animal agriculture and how, their goals for the global north is to reduce um, animal meat consumption by 50% by 2040. So, their goals were saying that, we should reduce our meat consumption in order to help improve climate change impacts. Um, so that's just an example of like what attending COP26 was like. It was essentially just me having the opportunity to go to different pavilions and listen to a bunch of different speakers. And so I was able to hear from speakers like Samantha Powers and Gina McCarthy. And so that was a great experience. And this is just a picture I took actually at the US Center in COP26. It was just a quote by our current president, Joe Biden. And I felt like it really emphasized the theme of COP26. Obviously it was the 26th conference, so they've done this before, we've been here before. But I really felt like the theme this time was, you know, we're not focusing on what our goals are for 2040 or 2050, but what are we doing now? What are we doing tomorrow? And then I just have some key takeaways. So I think some of the big points and things that I took away from this internship were just new technological skills like ArcGIS and Canva. Like I mentioned, I had never used ArcGIS before or even really Canva. So I think it was great that I was able to make these story maps on ArcGIS, and I found it a really new and innovative way of sharing stories. And I definitely foresee myself using story maps again in the future. Um, and then I also, creating maps that are interactive and user friendly for a range of audiences. I thought that was also really important. It's just, you know, we're making these maps interactive and easily read for all audiences. So it's not just for academics, it's not just for students, but everywhere, anyone in between can also look at these maps and take away some key points. And I also just think it was interesting managing an internship that, is in Chapel Hill while I'm abroad in Scotland. Um, I'm really thankful for CSC as well as EcoStudio for allowing me to, still be an intern, even though I'm abroad and I was completely virtual. Um, but I think that it was definitely doable, and I honestly think it goes to show like how we've learned how to transition, virtually through the pandemic. So that is it for my presentation. But if there are any questions, I would be glad to answer them.